Hello, YouTube. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today's video is going to be just a little bit different in that it's geared for teachers. The topic of today is 10 elements found in a successful certification program. Before I begin, I feel like I should share just a little bit about myself to give myself some credibility to talk about this. In my district, I'm the Microsoft Office trainer. My job is to help new teachers that come into the district earn their Microsoft certifications, and along the way, I try and give them tips and advice to help them be successful in their classroom. In my classroom, my class has gone from students who earn 3 certifications being about 25% to 90% of my students earning at least 3 certifications or more. My classroom has produced more master certs than any other school or teacher in the district over the last 4 years. Now, I know some of you are thinking, yeah, you probably have a special set of students. They chose your class. You have the gifted kids, but that's not the case. I have students that are in intensive reading. Some of my students are learning English. Other students are in AP. So I have the full gamut of students, but overall, my class is still successful. And I believe it's because there's 10 elements in there. The first element that I believe is important is that a teacher know their content. In my own classroom, I want to be known as the expert. I don't want my students to think, man, this guy has no clue what's going on. And if they have a question, I want them to know that I know how to help them. I don't want to have to give fluff answers to mask that I don't know what's going on. For this to happen, I think it's important that teachers work through all of their curriculum. This will help you to understand questions that your students might ask before they even ask it. But more importantly, it's going to help teachers to know how their curriculum kind of fits together. That way, teachers know what's really the most important thing and what is something that you can put in to help with that learning if there's time. In my class, I know that my textbook is a great foundation, but not everything in there is important and can be cut. And that there's things in my textbook that can be added to help strengthen student learning. But overall, I know G-Metrics is the most important thing. And so I want to make sure that G-Metrics has its right place in my class. Some of you are thinking, man, I'm a new teacher. That's a lot of reading and a lot of problems to work. And I understand. My first year of teaching, I didn't know I had a textbook until 3 days before class actually began. I had a very long weekend and a lack of sleep my first day of school. But it's important that you work through that and just chunk it off. If it's Word you're starting with, then work through all of the Word stuff as fast as you can, and then work on things like Excel and PowerPoint, or if it's a different certification, just chunk up your textbook. That way you don't feel so overwhelmed. Another element of a successful certification program is a teacher that continues to learn. It can be difficult for teachers not to feel like they've arrived, especially if they have taught a class over many years and they've been successful at it. But it's important that we continue to learn, continue to try and learn new things. Sometimes that's in a form of a book, but sometimes it's in things like YouTube and watching videos and trying to learn new things. And it's not always about finding material in your content. I started YouTube by accident, but it's helping my students. I'm trying to grow in that area. That way I can continue to try and deliver better content. I'm not doing a great job, but I'm trying to grow. And as a professional, I need to continue to grow. You know, I talk to other teachers. I find out what they're doing. I try and listen, try and interpret it, try and understand why they were successful doing what they did. And if that's going to help my program, I try and incorporate it. But we must continue to grow if we're going to help our students. The next element that I believe is important is for teachers to plan out their year. If you don't plan out your year, it's going to be very difficult for students to achieve the goals that you have for them. They need a direct path. I remember a few years ago hearing about a teacher who started the year off in Word, and in March, they were still working in Word. Their goal for their students was for them to earn 3 certifications, yet with 2 months left, they still had to earn Excel and PowerPoint or whatever the other certifications were. A plan was important for his students, and they didn't achieve their goals. What I normally do is I print out an Excel calendar, and I print out the months for the quarter that I'm working in. And I'll mark off holidays. I'll mark off important events, any milestones I wish to achieve, and then work backwards. For example, in quarter 2, we start Excel in my class, and I know that the first G-Metrics test is my midterm. And so I will pencil that into the calendar and then start working events backwards. Now, I want to caution you, you should be flexible with this because things happen. For example, in Florida, hurricanes, and that can throw you off and put you 2 weeks behind. And so you got to be flexible with that. But you also need to be flexible because maybe if you just spend another week and a half in Word, maybe 20 more of your students will qualify to take the certification exam. And so you have to be able to be flexible with your calendar. So I would encourage you, build in some time at the end of maybe units or at the end of the year so that you have that ability to do so. It is important that a teacher make their presence known in their classroom. I know far too many teachers that sit behind their desk for the entire period, and then they want to complain about students not getting their work done and behavioral problems that they're having. Teachers need to get up. They need to start moving around their classroom. Talk with students. You'll find out problems that they're having with the project, and it's a great opportunity to try and build relationships with students. Find out about their weekend. Find out about what's going on in their life. Because in my class, at least, I have that opportunity, the way my class is structured. But it also helps curb behavioral problems. And I want to encourage you, shake up your patterns. We fall into these patterns of walking in this direction and then coming back this way. But students will learn those patterns, and then that's when they'll start doing things like pulling out their cell phones and doing other things. Often when I shake up what I'm doing in the class is when I can kind of nip some of those behavioral problems in the class. And I'll be honest with you, I am talking with students, but I'll look over in another row and I'll see Johnny's having a problem. But instead of talking to Johnny, I'll say, hey, Melissa, hey, what are you doing? Oh, okay. Okay, good. Melissa wasn't doing anything wrong. I was helping Johnny to get back on task because I wanted them to know that I'm in the class and I can see what they're doing. Another important element is for teachers to have a support system. In my own life, I'm thankful for my wife, and I hope everybody feels that way about their spouse. But she's a teacher, and over the years, I've been able to bounce ideas off of her. She's told me where I was wrong mostly and what could be better, but I've had that dialogue with her, and she's not a computer teacher. In fact, she struggles just opening up certain programs sometimes, but she has been there, and she's been a resource for me, and that has been super helpful. But besides her, throughout my school districts at different schools, I have 4 or 5 different teachers that I reach out to on a regular basis. Sometimes it's to bounce ideas off of them. Sometimes it's to try and figure out some problems that we're having. And they can do the same to me. But the best thing that I have with that network of teachers is encouragement and challenging pieces. I will email a teacher and say, hey, how are things looking? And they'll give me some of their data for their students, and I'll give back data. We'll compare, and it encourages me to be better. And we have a healthy competition, some of the teachers and I, and it not only helps me to stay encouraged and to keep doing the best that I can do, but ultimately it's helping my students to reach their full potential. It's important that teachers have a support system. Another important element for a successful certification program is a teacher that has high expectations for their students. In my district, I'm required to have my students earn 850 or higher on their G-Metrics test before I can send them for a certification exam. But in my class, I hold my students to a higher standard. I expect them to get over 900 in order to take that certification exam. And I know in the back of my head that I could take the 850 and still be okay. But I want my students to push and to struggle to get that score. And ultimately, I believe it pays off in that students really know the material and it's not fluff answers because they've had to fight for that extra 5% on the exam. And throughout my class, I expect high expectations. And my students have often heard, and maybe this sounds harsh, but do it again. It's not good enough. And over the course of the year in the beginning, they really struggle with that, but they rise to the occasion. And over the course of the year, I no longer have to say those words. Students get the 885 and they just go in and do it again. And it's important that a teacher hold their students to high expectations. Another element found in a successful certification program is a teacher that doesn't do it for their students. I often see hands, hey, Mr. Sinclair, how do you insert a footer in this document? And it seems harsh, I know, but I will say, well, did you watch this video? Did you read here in the textbook? What about here in this project? Did you do that? I won't actually answer their question. And I know, again, it seems harsh, but I know that if I go and do it for them, that they're not really going to learn it. But if they have to struggle and do some research, then next week they'll know how to do it. And when they go for the certification exam, they're going to know how to do it. And it's not going to be a question because I can't walk over with them and take the test. Something else that I'll try and do is help lead them to the question. Okay, you want to insert a footer. Well, what tab do you think in the ribbon you should click? Okay, yeah, you're right. Why did you choose that? You got to ask those why, what, and help guide them to the answer themselves. That way they can fully take that knowledge and make it their own instead of just answering it for them. Another element of a successful certification program is a teacher that keeps good records. In my Microsoft class, this is very easy. I use G-Metrics as my data that I keep, and I have an Excel sheet. It lists every student and the scores that they have for that certification. Every day I go into G-Metrics, I pull the testing log, and I key in the scores from the previous day into my Excel sheet. This allows me to look at my class as a whole and see where my students are falling. Do I need to extend a lesson out a little bit further to make sure that all of my students have the best opportunity to be successful? But it also allows me to look at individual class data. Is there a class that's falling behind or not doing as well as some of the other classes? And it also allows me to break that data down even further by student. I will regularly pull students up to my desk and say, hey, what's going on? Are you struggling with this? You weren't able to earn the score, and have those good conversations with students and try and figure out what's best for them as a result. At the end of the year, those individual conversations are very important because I come up with a learning plan for that specific student in every class. That way, students have the best opportunity to be successful. It's important that a teacher keep good records. Another element is a teacher that remembers mastery is the goal. In my class, if students are working in a textbook, I'll let them do it 2-3 times. I'll go in and delete attempts so that they can do it again if I know a student's really trying their best to successfully complete an assignment. In G-Metrics, maybe we're in week 3 and I give the first practice exam as a test. And then in week 8, a student's been working really hard, they've gotten ahead. I'll let them go back and take that test again from week 1. And if they meet the goal that I've given them of a 900 or better, I'll go in the grade book and just put that grade in. I'm not looking to penalize my students. I want them to qualify to take that certification exam. I want them to feel successful and to work hard in my class. And I believe that all of that rewards students and gives them that mindset to continue to work hard and do their best. How many times have we tried something on the first attempt and not been successful? Well, how can we expect my freshmen to do well on their first attempt? Oftentimes they're not going to. And it's a trial basis and they have to do it wrong. And it's important for them to go back and learn from their mistakes. And so we have to remember mastery is the goal. The final element of a successful certification program, and I believe the most important one, is a teacher that takes responsibility for their classroom. I know this is going to sound harsh. I'm tired of hearing teachers complain about their students. Yes, students are going to have problems with academics. And yes, you're going to have behavioral issues from time to time. And you're probably not going to have the support that you'd like from home. But the lack of success for your students ultimately falls upon your shoulders. We have to stop casting that blame on our students and everything around us and take ownership of our class. In my own class, I've had a lot of success, and I believe the main reason is I'm willing to take that responsibility. At the beginning of the year, I set a goal for my class that I wanted this percentage of my students to have at least 3 certifications, and I've hit that goal, and I'm thankful for that. But that didn't happen by accident. I look back to the other elements that we talked about for the reason of that success. But in addition to that goal, I know that all of my level 3, 4, and 5 students earn at least 3 certifications. And so I zeroed in this year on my level 1 and 2 readers. And those students have done significantly better this year because I had that as a goal, because I made that an emphasis, because I did just a little bit more to help them. We have to take ownership of our classroom if we're going to have a successful certification program. Thanks for staying tuned for the entire video. I hope that something I've said will be a help for you in your class. I love to hear your thoughts below. Don't be too mean to me if you didn't like what I had to say. But let me know some of the things that are going on in your class. How are you being successful? What are some of the things that your students are doing? And hopefully something that you say below can help other teachers and be an encouragement to them. Again, I appreciate your time. I hope you have a fantastic day.